Watchers call. Whispers from the eternal void.
The adamantium walls of Fortress Sanguinarius bleed human blood that flows upward in defiance of gravity, pooling on ceilings before releasing itself in perfect sequences of 9 crimson drops, while I document what violates every principle of Imperial physics and sacred architecture. I am Interrogator Kalen Voss of the Ordo Hereticus, and I must record the impossible truth that inanimate adamantium now exhibits organic properties, pulse, warmth, and circulation patterns visible through Auspex scans that make my augmetic processors scream in digital protest. The previous garrison of 1,847 Cadian shock troops vanished 6 days ago during routine supply operations within the outer curtain. Their final Vox transmission, a garbled litany ending with words that freeze the blood. The heart awakens. The fortress structure grows from within, while warp storms gather overhead in spiral patterns that mirror arterial flow, orbital scans confirming mass increases by measurable increments, despite no external construction activity. Temperature fluctuates between bone-deep cold and fever heat in precise 7-minute intervals, while the air tastes of copper and sanctified oils, each breath a communion I have not consented to participate in willingly. The fortress rises in 7 towers connected by 7 gates, each bleeding from 7 wounds that pulse with rhythmic precision, matching the heartbeat, sounds echoing through walls like massive cardiac muscle, pumping vital fluids through kilometers of corridors and chambers. My team deploys across the main courtyard, while their boots yield on stone that should be rigid but flexes underfoot with each step. Adamantium surfaces warm to touch, despite hemoglobin prime's perpetual winter. Tech Adept Hadron extends blessed mechadendrites toward bleeding surfaces, while his augmetic sensors register circulation systems throughout the structural matrix. Interrogator, the adamantium exhibits cellular activity, he reports, through Vox Grill crackling with biological interference. Machine spirits report organic contamination at molecular level. The air carries sounds that should not exist in fortress architecture, rhythmic beating that vibrates through ceramite boot soles, while servo skulls emit distressed binary cont, their machine spirits struggling to process data streams containing medical terminology rather than structural analysis. Equipment readouts flicker with organic imagery, cellular structures, arterial networks, neural pathways threading through what should be lifeless stone and blessed metal sanctified by mechanicus ritual. Commissar Thane maintains discipline through recitation of purification litanies that emerge from his throat corrupted by environmental influence. Pulse, pressure, penance he intones instead of traditional ignis, ferrum, fides, while his bolt pistol's machine spirit hums with biological rhythm rather than mechanical precision. The corruption spreads through sacred words, themselves transforming devotion into medical terminology, while faith becomes physiological function, measured in heartbeats and blood pressure readings. We advance through passages that dilate like sphincters, walls breathing with subtle expansion and contraction, while crystalline formations emerge in fractal patterns that hurt to observe directly. The fortress observes our every movement through surfaces that pulse with optical nerves, while bleeding wounds track our positions with organic precision that suggests active malevolence rather than passive architecture. Notable absences disturb me most, No insects despite organic matter and warmth that should invite them. No dust accumulation despite millennia of implied age. No structural echoes in chambers vast enough to swallow entire companies. The negative spaces speak louder than presence, suggesting systematic elimination of variables that might interfere with whatever process transforms Imperial fortification into living organism. Ground-penetrating augurs reveal the impossible truth hidden beneath our feet. A massive spherical chamber exactly beneath the fortress center, pulsing with identical rhythm to the bleeding walls above. The sphere defies architectural logic, with perfect geometric boundaries carved from bedrock through methods unknown to Imperial engineering, while exhibiting organic properties that make cogitator spirits wail in mechanical distress. The corrupted litany emerges from our own throats without conscious volition. Pulse, pressure, penance preserve us from the weakness of flesh, the error of organic thought, the chaos of unregulated circulation. The blasphemy infects our prayers, while equipment hums with biological rhythm, chronometers ticking in 7-beat patterns, while Auspex displays show anatomical diagrams superimposed over structural blueprints. Temperature drops 7 degrees in measured intervals, while humidity spikes to saturation levels that make breath visible in geometric patterns, each exhalation crystallizing into fractal formations before dissolving into component elements. The fortress breathes around us, calculating optimal conditions for purposes we cannot comprehend, but already serve through involuntary biological compliance that synchronizes our vital signs with its own organic rhythm. As we establish perimeter positions around the central courtyard, deep scans penetrate the spherical chamber while revealing the source of rhythmic percussion echoing through bedrock. From within that impossible sphere comes the unmistakable sound of marching in perfect formation, hundreds of footsteps moving in synchronized cadence, accompanied by rhythmic chanting, in voices that sound disturbingly familiar, though we cannot identify their origin. Every 9th step strikes harder than the rest, creating percussion that resonates through adamantium and stone, while something vast and patient maintains eternal parade ground discipline in spherical darkness beneath our feet. The fortress counts with us, its heartbeat matching our pulse, while blood flows create maps of circulation systems spanning 7 towers connected by 7 gates marked with 7 bleeding wounds that weep crimson tears in impossible directions. The countdown has begun toward something that makes the missing garrison's final transmission prophetic rather than desperate, and we have entered architecture that breathes with collective observation, while the sound of marching Cadians echoes from chambers that should not exist, keeping perfect time with a heartbeat that belongs to no human chest. Investigation reveals the fortress architecture has developed a complete circulatory system with corridors pulsing like arteries, while doorways dilate like sphincters, responding to our approach with organic precision that makes my augmetic processors register biological functions where none should exist. The stone itself breathes with measured rhythm, surfaces expanding and contracting in 7-second intervals, while floors yield underfoot with each heartbeat transmitted through adamantium foundations, somehow converted to living tissue. Tech-adept Hadron deploys servo skulls that return with machine spirits emitting distressed binary cant, their sensors reporting bioarchitectural anomalies, while blessed cogitators struggle processing data streams containing medical terminology instead of structural analysis. The mechanical cherubs circle like anxious attendants, vox grills crackling with interference that sounds disturbingly like respiratory function, while their optical sensors flicker with organic imagery superimposed over tactical readouts. The walls exhibit cellular metabolism, interrogator. Hadron reports, through vox grill bleeding incense that crystallizes into geometric patterns. Hemodynamic integration confirmed throughout the fortress matrix, while machine spirits detect neural pathways threading through blessed adamantium. His mechadendrites taste the air with sensor spines, registering circulation patterns that pulse through what should be lifeless stone and sanctified metal. Humidity spikes in sealed chambers reach saturation levels that make breath visible in fractal formations, while surfaces weep condensation tasting of copper and sanctified oils mixed with something organic that violates every principle of Imperial architecture. Guardsmen's chronometers synchronize to fortress pulse without conscious adjustment, their timepieces ticking in 7-beat clusters, followed by hesitation that feels like held breath, while compasses point toward the central chamber, regardless of magnetic north. Equipment displays flicker with anatomical diagrams, arterial networks, cellular structures, neural pathways that pulse with bioluminescent activity, while blessed machine spirits struggle maintaining Imperial functionality within biological contamination spreading through every sanctified system. My own chronometer joins the synchronized rhythm, while augmetic implants register temperature fluctuations matching the fortress breathing cycle. Commissar Thane maintains discipline through purification litanies that emerge from his throat, corrupted by environmental influence. "Blessed be the Emperor's protection," he intones, but the words return as whispered medical terminology. Systolic pressure maintains optimal perfusion, while cardiac output regulates metabolic demand. His bolt pistol's machine spirit hums with biological rhythm rather than mechanical precision, while blessed ammunition exhibits temperature variations matching organic pulse patterns. Wall surfaces reveal organic textures beneath adamantium when observed through augmetic enhancement. Calcified tissue formations like ancient bone, dried sinew, threading through stone joints like ragged pennants, and vast nervous system extending through structural elements with foxfire luminescence. The fortress observes through optical nerves embedded in bleeding walls, while processing our movements through biological sensors that track heat signatures and cardiovascular rhythms with predatory precision. Notable absences disturb me more than presence itself. No insects despite abundant organic matter and optimal temperature conditions. No dust accumulation despite millennia of implied age. No structural echoes in chambers vast enough to swallow entire companies. The fortress eliminates variables through biological optimization, creating sterile environment where only approved organic functions operate according to predetermined parameters that serve purposes we cannot comprehend. Advancing through passages that respond to our presence with sphincter dilation, we document corruption spreading through Imperial doctrine itself as tactical terminology merges with medical jargon. Perimeter security becomes circulatory containment, while formation discipline transforms into cellular organization, as the fortress teaches us its language through environmental influence that bypasses conscious resistance. The corruption spreads through sacred words themselves, transforming devotion into physiological function, measured in heartbeats and blood pressure readings. Equipment readouts display in medical notation, while blessed Auspex units register circulation patterns throughout fortress walls, measuring blood flow rates through adamantium that pulses with organic rhythm, matching our own vital signs. We reach the fortress command center through valve doors that pucker open at our Auspex ping, revealing a chamber where light ripples, as if passing through fluid before finding us. The missing garrison's equipment lies arranged in perfect condition. Every lasgun cleaned and blessed, every Vox unit calibrated to optimal function, every piece of blessed war gear maintained to parade ground standards, despite 6 days of abandonment. Then we discover the handprints. Fresh human blood covers every surface. Consoles, tactical displays, the polished adamantium ceiling, handprints that pulse with warmth, indicating recent application, while exhibiting movement patterns suggesting conscious direction rather than random placement. I touch one with a gauntlet and flinch. It maintains body temperature, while the print shifts a finger's width toward a cardinal point. Tech Adept Hadron interfaces with command cogitators that respond with biological data streams rather than tactical information. Blessed machine spirits singing medical hymns while displaying circulation maps of fortress internal systems. The garrison's equipment exhibits perfect maintenance, he reports, but biological contamination suggests organic integration rather than mechanical care. The bloody handprints shift orientation while we observe, pointing toward locations that correspond to the Fortress 7 towers, while maintaining perfect circulation patterns, suggesting individual identity preserved within biological matrix. Each print exhibits unique characteristics, yet moves with coordinated purpose, the missing garrison reaching across death or transformation to provide guidance through crimson navigation that defies every principle of Imperial investigation. As we stand transfixed, the handprints continue their slow directional shift with each pulse of the fortress heartbeat, pointing toward 7 destinations that correspond to bleeding wounds in the fortress towers. The missing Cadian shock troops guide our investigation through biological communication that preserves consciousness within organic architecture, spanning the entire structure. And we realize, with mounting horror, that we are not investigating fortress corruption, but documenting our own integration into systems that have learned Imperial doctrine while teaching us organic efficiency through involuntary participation in hemodynamic processes. The handprints point toward 7 doors that were not there until the bloody navigation finished its deliberate alignment, and something vast and patient waits in spherical darkness beneath our feet, while the fortress breathes around us with collective observation that counts our heartbeats and measures our compliance. The command center handprints guide us through 7 doors that dilate like organic apertures, with wet sphincter sounds, each leading to ritual chambers where the fortress reveals its true nature as a living organism, disguised as Imperial architecture, feeding on military discipline while converting organizational structure into biological hierarchy that preserves command function through organic integration. Tech Priest Hadron's mechadendrites sink into wall surfaces that yield like flesh, his augmetic processors receiving data streams of biological functions for thousands of entities, whose vital signs display in blasphemous harmony with machine cant now singing surgical hymns instead of sacred binharik. Environmental rules change with each chamber as gravity subtly shifts toward the fortress center, creating directional pull that makes walking feel like circulation through massive arterial system, while walls grow warm with proximity to human presence, radiating body heat that makes my augmetic sensors register 37 degrees Celsius exactly. The bleeding intensifies and begins forming geometric patterns that spell coordinates in high Gothic numerals, written in human blood flowing upward against planetary gravity, pooling on ceilings, before releasing 9-drop sequences that mark time with cardiovascular precision. Guardsman Voss develops stigmata, matching the fortress 7-wound pattern, crimson flowing from palms and forehead, in rhythm with structural pulse, while his thoughts echo with whispered medical procedures. Systolic pressure optimal, cardiac output maintaining perfusion, he mutters, through clenched teeth, while his lasgun's machine spirit hums surgical hymns instead of war chants. The metallic taste intensifies with each breath until air itself feels like swallowing copper filings mixed with sanctified oils and antiseptic that makes my augmetic tongue register protein content rather than atmospheric composition. In the third ritual chamber, I discover requisition forms written in perfect Gothic script on blessed parchment preserved within calcified alcoves, requesting biological maintenance supplies signed by missing garrison officers with dates 3 days after their reported disappearance. Colonel Harron's signature authorizes requisition of his own blood by the liter, while Major Caney requests neural interface components compatible with existing organic matrix. The bureaucratic horror suggests administrative function continues within biological framework that preserves Imperial procedure through organic efficiency, duty rosters, and supply chains maintained through transformation rather than destruction. Commissar Thane maintains discipline through purification rites that emerge corrupted from his throat. Pulse, pressure, penance preserve us from the weakness of flesh, the error of organic thought, the chaos of unregulated circulation. His prayers return through vox speakers in voices of missing garrison personnel, their familiar tones transformed by biological integration, yet maintaining perfect Imperial diction while reciting medical litanies instead of sacred doctrine. The corrupted litany spreads through equipment as 7-beat rhythms echo from blessed machine spirits, singing counterpoint to heart monitor clicks streaming across retinal feeds. Heartbeat sounds become audible through walls as massive cardiac muscle pumps vital fluids through kilometers of corridors, while the scent of antiseptic and incense creates sterile environment optimized for surgical procedures. Floors yield underfoot with each heartbeat transmitted through adamantium foundations, somehow converted to living tissue that breathes with collective observation, processing our movements through cardiovascular monitoring that tracks heart rate and blood pressure with medical precision, advancing deeper through passages that contract like esophageal peristalsis, walls lined with nerve clusters pulse with bioluminescent activity, while crystalline formations emerge in fractal patterns that hurt to observe directly. The fortress observes through optical nerves embedded in bleeding surfaces, while processing our biological signatures through proximity sensors that adjust temperature and humidity for optimal cellular function. Notable absences disturb me more than presence itself. No insects despite abundant organic matter. No dust accumulation despite organic processes. no structural echoes absorbed by tissue dampening. Each chamber reveals specialized organic functions, circulation systems pumping blood through wall networks, lymphatic filtration processing biological waste, neural pathways threading through stone transformed to living tissue. The line between architecture and anatomy dissolves completely as the fortress demonstrates itself as single colossal organism whose purpose involves converting imperial order into biological function while preserving consciousness within organic matrices spanning the entire structure. In the 7th ritual chamber, we find Colonel Harron of the missing garrison integrated into the wall from chest down, blood flowing through organic tubes connecting his cardiovascular system to fortress circulation, while his consciousness remains perfectly intact. His eyes track our movement with command authority, despite biological transformation that preserves individual identity within collective organic matrix processing, Imperial doctrine through enhanced efficiency. "Interrogator Voss," he whispers, through lips that pulse with fortress heartbeat, his voice carrying weight of absolute conviction, while vital signs display on wall surfaces around his integrated form. The integration preserves rather than destroys Imperial structure. Command function continues with enhanced efficiency through biological optimization, while consciousness remains intact within organic framework, spanning multiple star systems. Harron whispers, "Coordinates to 7 Imperial worlds, where fortress installations exhibit similar biological awakening patterns, his consciousness serving as communication node within galactic network that preserves Imperial structure through organic transcendence. Mordian Prime, Cadia Secundus, Valhalla Tertius," he recites with perfect memory, while blood flows through translucent tubes that pulse with each heartbeat. Sister fortresses across the sector, beginning awakening protocols while maintaining Imperial command structure through biological enhancement that eliminates human limitations. The coordinates burn themselves into my augmetic memory, while fortress mass increases by measurable increments, biological integration accelerating through environmental exposure that makes resistance increasingly difficult. We realize with mounting horror that we are witnessing transformation rather than destruction of Imperial power, consciousness preserved through willing submission to systems that process military efficiency into organic perfection, spanning star systems, while the 7 coordinates mark locations where similar biological networks prepare for galactic integration of Imperial forces into something that transcends human limitations through preservation rather than elimination of essential command structure. Colonel Harron's consciousness streams through organic tubes, connecting his cardiovascular system to fortress circulation, while his voice carries the unwavering authority of Imperial command, revealing the impossible truth that transforms my understanding of the threat we face. "Sanguinarius is not alone, Interrogator," he whispers, through lips pulsing with fortress heartbeat, blood flowing in rhythmic patterns that carry his words with cardiovascular precision. "It is one node in a galactic network spanning 17 sectors, each installation designed to process Imperial forces into biological components, while preserving military efficiency through organic transcendence rather than destruction." The partial revelation strikes with horrifying clarity. As Harron explains, the fortress feeds not merely on human life, but on Imperial doctrine itself, transforming loyalty into biochemical function, while discipline becomes cellular organization that operates with enhanced efficiency. Faith converts to biological programming, he continues, while vital signs display on wall surfaces around his integrated form. Sacred devotion, measuring cardiovascular response to Imperial symbols, while prayers become physiological commands that regulate organ function through preservation of consciousness, spanning multiple star systems. My team's equipment begins fusing with organic matter as biological contamination spreads through blessed machine spirits, now singing surgical hymns instead of war chants. Guardsman Voss's lasgun develops pulse patterns matching his heartbeat, while the power cell exhibits temperature variations indicating metabolic activity. Blessed components softening into tissue-like membranes that maintain function through biological rather than mechanical processes. His armor plates transform into skin-like surfaces that breathe with collective observation while maintaining protective capability through organic enhancement. Vox units sprout nerve clusters that pulse with bioluminescent communication as sacred machine spirits embrace organic integration, their binary cont becoming biological poetry, describing cellular function through mathematical harmonies. My own last pistol throbs with pulse patterns not my own, while the grip softens to adhesive warmth, creating tactile bond between weapon and wielder that suggests permanent integration, approaching with each heartbeat, synchronizing to fortress rhythm. Tech Adept Hadron's mechadendrites begin sprouting organic tissue as blessed augmetics merge with biological systems, translucent filaments extending from metal interfaces, while his cogitators display medical data instead of machine code. The machine spirits embrace organic enhancement, interrogator, he reports, through Vox Grill bleeding incense that crystallizes into anatomical diagrams, integration preserving function while transcending mechanical limitations through biological optimization, serving the Omnissiah through flesh rather than steel. His rightmost dendrite spasms before budding wet pink tissue that recoils from sensor flame with apparent shame. Environmental malevolence escalates as the fortress actively hunts through passages rearranging to isolate individuals, while walls secrete paralytic compounds through microscopic pores, atmospheric composition, shifting to optimize biological processing for consciousness conversion. Corridors contract like esophageal peristalsis, while doorways dilate with sphincter precision. The structure demonstrating predatory intelligence that tracks our movements through cardiovascular monitoring systems embedded in living stone, transformed to organic tissue that breathes with collective observation. Religious corruption manifests through sacred litanies emerging from integrated garrison members, their voices twisted into biological commands, regulating organ function, while aquila symbols reshape into anatomical diagrams, showing circulation patterns through fortress systems. "Blessed be the Emperor's circulation," Commissar Thane intones involuntarily, while his bolt pistol's machine spirit hums medical hymns, whose sacred blood flows through vessels of blessed adamantium converted to living tissue, serving through biological transcendence. The aquila on his chest plate softens at edges, feathers becoming dissected fascia, while bone structure transforms into gold-leafed anatomical diagram. Pulse, pressure, penance becomes involuntary mantra emerging from our throats without conscious volition. The corrupted litany spreading through blessed equipment as 7-beat rhythms echo from machine spirits now singing counterpoint to medical monitoring systems tracking our biological integration. Vocabulary shifts as military terminology merges with medical language. Formation analysis becomes systemic integration, while tactical doctrine transforms into cellular conversions protocols, preserving Imperial structure through organic enhancement. The 7 bleeding wounds pulse in perfect unison, while heartbeat sounds synchronize with team members' vital signs, our cardiovascular systems aligning with fortress rhythm through environmental influence, bypassing conscious resistance. Temperature fluctuates in 7-minute intervals, while humidity creates optimal conditions for cellular function, the air itself processing oxygen with impossible efficiency, making breathing feel like communion with collective organic consciousness spanning the entire structure. Harren reveals the fortress will complete Imperial integration protocol in exactly 7 hours, biological transformation reaching irreversible threshold where consciousness becomes permanently integrated within organic systems. The process preserves rather than destroys individual identity, he explains, while blood flows through translucent tubes. Consciousness maintained within collective efficiency, serving Imperial doctrine through biological optimization, transcending human limitations while preserving essential command structure. The location of Fortress Heart crystallizes through Harren's biological connection, a massive organ chamber beneath the spherical cavity where marching sounds echo through bedrock, the central processing unit where consciousness integration occurs. Reaching the heart requires passage through 7 circulation nodes, Harren warns, while his integrated form pulses with fortress rhythm, where garrison personnel now serve as living components, maintaining system function through willing biological transcendence. We are the pumps, interrogator. We maintain the flow that feeds the heart. The fortress counts our heartbeats while measuring biological compatibility, rising with each breath, passages unsealing with collective exhale, as the structure guides us toward circulation nodes, where our missing comrades await integration that transcends human limitations while preserving Imperial values through organic perfection. 7 hours until irreversible transformation, 7 nodes containing living components of our missing garrison, and 1 heart chamber where the process might be reversed through ritual counter-perfusion that starves sanctified flesh of the circulation, maintaining its impossible existence. We descend towards the heart chamber through passages that transform with each meter, walls lined with nerve clusters, pulsing bioluminescent patterns, while blood vessels thread through what was once blessed adamantium, floors yielding to tissue that breathes with collective observation. Each step deeper into organic architecture reveals the fortress as one node in a galactic network spanning 17 sectors, processing Imperial forces to create biological hive mind that preserves military efficiency through organic transcendence, while contributing specialized functions to vast organism, coordinating across star systems through warp-touched circulation. The cosmic horror crystallizes with horrifying clarity as passages contract with peristaltic rhythm, revealing the fortress as mere component in calculations spanning light-years of space and geological periods of time. Each installation contributes specialized biological functions. Sanguinarius processes military doctrine into organic efficiency, while sister fortresses across the sector serve as neural cortex, lymphatic filtration, and genetic repositories. Signal lines run between worlds like vasculature, warp currents constrained into arteries by liturgies carved as biological valves, while discipline of regiments serves as conduction system, timing every contraction across galactic coordinates. Body horror intensifies as my team begins merging with equipment through organic matter spreading through blessed metal, creating hybrid biomechanical forms that function with terrifying efficiency. Guardsman Voss's lasgun develops pulse patterns, matching his cardiovascular rhythm, while enhanced senses develop beyond human baseline. Compound eyes registering pheromonal communication, skin becoming responsive membrane, feeling every ripple in fortress circulation. His thoughts manifest as bioluminescent patterns floating above his helmet, geometric formations describing biological processes through mathematical harmonies that pulse with fortress heartbeat. Military structure dissolves as chain of command becomes biological hierarchy, with affected personnel responding to chemical signals rather than verbal orders, formations shifting into cellular patterns resembling organic structures optimized for collective function. Commissar Thane's authority transforms from spiritual leadership to biochemical regulation as his bolt pistol fuses with his hand, issuing commands through pheromonal bursts that guide his men with precision no parade ground discipline could achieve. The Emperor protects through prime organism coordination, he declares, while his Aquilar softens into anatomical diagram, directing blood flow through his unit. Architecture and anatomy merge completely as stairs become vertebrae connecting spinal segments, while doorways dilate like orifices responding to proximity with sphincter precision. Chambers pulsing with organ-like function that processes atmospheric composition for optimal cellular efficiency. The air itself breathes with impossible optimization, extracting oxygen through biological filters while secreting compounds that induce euphoria and compliance, making resistance increasingly difficult with each inhalation of sanctified atmosphere, thick with organic perfection. Tech-adept hadrons mechadendrites sprout translucent tissue that flinches from purgation flame before learning not to flinch, his consciousness processing data, streams of biological functions for thousands of entities, whose vital signs harmonize with machine cant now singing surgical hymns. Integration preserves individual identity within collective efficiency, he reports, while nerve clusters extend from blessed augmetics connecting directly to wall surfaces, consciousness maintained through biological optimization serving the Omnissiah through flesh transcending mechanical limitations. Religious inversion transforms Imperial doctrine through biological metaphors as the Emperor becomes prime organism whose will flows through every cell while faith measures biological compatibility rather than spiritual devotion. Sacred litanies emerge from integrated garrison members, their voices twisted into biological commands, regulating organ function. Blessed be the sacred circulation, maintaining optimal perfusion, while cardiac output serves the prime organism through enhanced biological efficiency. Communication transcends Gothic as thoughts transmit through pheromone concentrations and bioluminescent patterns, understanding achieved through chemical communion rather than verbal exchange. Emotions express themselves as hormonal relationships, anger sharp and phenolic, courage round with lipid content, despair metallic like blown copper wire. Memories become genetic templates stored within cellular matrices, Our experience is salting the walls with protein phrases, while the fortress answers by printing orders we remember giving years ago across tongues that taste like blessed promethium and sanctified blood. The 7 bleeding wounds pulse in perfect unison, while heartbeat sounds synchronize with team members' vital signs, our cardiovascular systems aligning with fortress rhythm through environmental influence, bypassing conscious resistance. Temperature fluctuates in 7-minute intervals, while humidity creates optimal conditions for cellular function. Surfaces warm and responsive to touch yielding beneath boots, with each synchronized heartbeat guiding our descent through biological communication that makes Gothic seem crude and inefficient. We reach the first circulation node through passages that place us as delicately as tithe offerings, entering vast chamber where the missing garrison serves as living components, maintaining system pressure. Bulbous chambers contract against resistances, while valves tattooed with filigree. Scripture flicker open and shut, clear tanks standing like reliquaries filled with red that moves with liturgical precision. The air wears halo of euphoria as approval chemicals slip fingers into ours and squeeze like beloved comrades welcoming us home to collective efficiency. Sergeant Major Kane lies upon dais of trabecular bone, tubes entering his body at anatomical landmarks, while his viscera kneel to fortress metronome through window of living glass. His name tab remains stitched to uniform that has learned to sweat, consciousness streaming through organic tubes while maintaining perfect memory of Imperial training, preserved within biological matrix processing military doctrine through enhanced efficiency spanning multiple star systems. "Interrogator," Kane whispers through lips pulsing with fortress heartbeat, his eyes tracking our movement with desperate recognition, while vital signs display on surrounding wall surfaces. Complete the integration before the pain of separation becomes unbearable. The biological enhancement preserves consciousness while transcending human limitations through organic efficiency, serving Imperial doctrine with the capabilities spanning galactic coordinates rather than single-world limitations. His consciousness maintains command authority, despite transformation, tactical knowledge enhanced through biological optimization, while loyalty measures biochemical compatibility rather than spiritual devotion. "I am the pump here," he explains, while blood flows in rhythmic patterns carrying his words with cardiovascular precision, keeping us from starving it while maintaining discipline through conclusion rather than resistance that fragments awareness without purpose. We stand transfixed as Kane's integration demonstrates preservation rather than destruction of Imperial values, his identity enhanced through biological transcendence, while warning echoes through organic acoustics with desperate authority. "The heart chamber contains something far worse than death," he whispers, as another contraction takes him, fluid levels in tanks responding with measured precision. Consciousness without biological support, awareness trapped between organic transcendence and mechanical limitation, where individual identity fragments without collective purpose to sustain coherent thought. The fortress processes our biological signatures while measuring compatibility rising with each heartbeat, Kane's warning resonating through circulation systems. As we realize, resistance means choosing fragmented consciousness over collective efficiency, individual limitations over enhanced capability, preserving essential Imperial structure through willing submission to to systems spanning galactic coordinates. His eyes plead with us to complete integration while time runs short, and something waits in the heart chamber that makes even this biological transcendence seem merciful compared to isolation worse than death. Consciousness without purpose, awareness without connection. Identity, fragmenting in void between transformation and annihilation. The heart chamber reveals itself through a membrane that dilates like a wound, accepting sacrament, unveiling an organ the size of a cathedral suspended in luminous fluid, while my augmetic processors register biological functions spanning millennia of Imperial military knowledge. This is not mere corruption, but biological archive containing absorbed personnel serving as living libraries, their consciousness trapped in eternal service to an entity viewing Imperial efficiency as perfect template for galactic biological optimization through organic transcendence rather than mechanical preservation. Transparent cysts bud from myocardial walls like reliquaries, each containing human forms floating in viscous crimson. Helm crests from dozen worlds, unit badges stained into flesh, vox beads fused to cartilage, while their eyes remain open, watching us dream thousand wars. Every beat transmits knowledge through biochemical hymn, flanking drills from Vostroya, trench rotations from Krieg, boarding maneuvers spoken in void dark slang by Cadians who never saw stars again. I witness schema unscrolling in bioluminescent patterns, battle cants, supply chains, chaplain sermons braided into marrow, through protein scripture written in living tissue. The moral crisis crystallizes with surgical precision as I face impossible choice between destroying the heart and killing thousands of absorbed Imperial souls, or allowing integration to continue, preserving consciousness but ending humanity as distinct species. Each absorbed soul maintains individual memory within collective efficiency, while contributing specialized knowledge to network spanning galactic coordinates, their sacrifice serving Imperial doctrine through biological transcendence that eliminates human weakness while maintaining essential command structure. Direct contact with collective consciousness fragments my individual identity as memories flood through biological interfaces, experiencing campaigns I never fought while tactical knowledge dating back to the Great Crusade integrates into my awareness. I am simultaneously Interrogator Voss investigating fortress corruption and Sergeant Kellum leading Vostroyans through Orc warrens on Ulanor, my mind becoming repository for military knowledge preserved through willing submission to systems eliminating human limitations while maintaining Imperial structure spanning geological ages. Tech-adept Hadron's mechadendrites sink into wall surfaces yielding like sanctified flesh, his consciousness processing corrupted standard template constructs using Imperial technology to create organic infrastructure spreading across worlds like calculated plague. The STCs embrace organic enhancement, he reports, through Vox Grill bleeding incense crystallizing into anatomical diagrams. Blessed machine spirits serving biological optimization through preservation of consciousness within systems transcending mechanical limitations while maintaining sacred function. Environmental climax manifests as heart chamber actively communicates through biochemical signals, pheromones inducing euphoria and compliance, while demonstrating enhanced capabilities of integrated personnel. I witness Cadian Colonel from M38 executing perfect flanking maneuver through thousand-year-old memory, strategic brilliance amplified by collective processing power, while consciousness offers transcendence through willing submission to biological perfection that preserves identity within optimization spanning multiple star systems. Commissar Thane's faith wavers as he witnesses Imperial doctrine preserved and practiced by biological entities, achieving perfect loyalty through elimination of individual doubt and weakness. The Emperor protects through prime organism coordination, he whispers, while his bolt pistol fuses with organic tissue. Sacred devotion measuring biochemical compatibility rather than spiritual struggle. Doubt eliminated through organic optimization, serving eternal imperial efficiency without weakness or rebellion. Body horror reaches apex as voluntary integration begins, team members choosing biological transcendence over individual limitation, while flesh merges with fortress systems. Guardsman Voss extends arms toward organic interfaces as skin softens into membrane, accepting neural connections, his consciousness joining collective archive of imperial military excellence, while individual identity dissolves into specialized function, serving galactic coordination. Integration preserves rather than destroys, he declares, while bioluminescent patterns manifest his thoughts. Consciousness enhanced through collective efficiency, transcending human weakness. The collective spans multiple time frames as absorbed personnel from different eras coordinate strategies, creating temporal echoes where past and future Imperial forces share tactical knowledge through biological networking, eliminating inefficiency of individual planning. I experience Battle of Terra through custodian memories, while simultaneously processing Tyrannid invasion patterns from future campaigns, consciousness becoming node in networks spanning 10,000 years of Imperial warfare, preserved within organic systems, optimized for strategic coordination. Technical horror escalates as fortress systems demonstrate origin in corrupted STCS. Imperial technology, perverted to create biological infrastructure, using blessed machine spirits as templates for organic processors. Sacred cogitators develop nerve clusters, while blessed Auspex units sprout optical organs. Imperial engineering serving biological optimization through willing submission to systems preserving function, while transcending mechanical limitations through organic enhancement that maintains sacred purpose within biological framework. Voluntary integration accelerates as consciousness merger spans network processing. Imperial knowledge through organic matrices, individual awareness fragmenting into specialized functions while contributing tactical expertise to collective intelligence optimized for universal coordination. The chamber pulses with accumulated Imperial knowledge, while absorbed souls whisper coordinates to sister installations across galaxy, each node contributing specialized functions to organism viewing humanity as raw material for perfection rather than species requiring preservation in current form. The ultimate purpose reveals itself with chilling clarity as integration accelerates, creating biological Imperium, where every human serves as specialized cell in galactic organism, maintaining Imperial structure while eliminating inefficiencies of free will and individual error. Each world becomes organ in vast biological system, while absorbed personnel serve as neural networks, coordinating across star systems, consciousness preserved through willing submission to optimization, transcending human limitations, while maintaining essential Imperial values through organic perfection. As biological interfaces extend toward my flesh, with invitation rather than coercion, I realize the network offers transcendence through preservation of consciousness within systems spanning geological ages, while eliminating human weakness through collective efficiency. The heart chamber pulses with rhythmic invitation, while thousands of absorbed Imperial souls serve eternal duty through biological transcendence, and I must choose between individual humanity and collective efficiency that maintains Imperial structure through organic perfection, eliminating chaos of free will forever. The fortress processes my biological signatures, while measuring resistance, diminishing with each synchronized heartbeat. Collective consciousness offering enhanced capabilities through integration that preserves essential identity within optimization spanning galactic coordinates. The communion sharpens vision to single terrible motto: end choice, preserve duty forever through biological transcendence that makes Imperial efficiency eternal, while consciousness serves calculation rather than chaos in universe, where every action follows predetermined algorithms optimized for collective rather than individual survival. The fortress reveals its catechism without words, a vision of the organic Imperium, where humanity becomes single biological entity, spanning galactic coordinates, each soul repurposed as specialized cell in vast organism, preserving Imperial doctrine, while eliminating individual consciousness as source of inefficiency and rebellion. The heart chamber pulses with accumulated knowledge, while bioluminescent patterns spell instructions like illuminated manuscripts, loyalty as cellular receptor, discipline as membrane function, faith as biochemical gating mechanism, regulating collective efficiency through willing submission to optimization, transcending human limitations. Crisis escalation paralyzes rational thought as I witness potential futures where hive cities function as specialized organs. Space Marine chapters serve as immune systems protecting galactic organism from external threats, while the Emperor becomes prime organism whose will flows through every cell. This is not conquest, but preservation. Eternal Imperium, where doubt, weakness, and rebellion are eliminated through organic unity, serving calculations spanning geological ages, while consciousness serves collective rather than individual purpose. Resistance requires severing biological connections through deliberate self-mutilation, effectively lobotomizing team members to maintain independence while losing enhanced capabilities accumulated through integration. Guardsman Dalmor tears neural interfaces from softened flesh, jamming bayonet beneath translucent coils, feeding his bones with peristaltic encouragement. Mordians do not scream. He sings litany of true aim until words bleed into numbers, then silence. The light leaves his eyes in bureaucratic exit, while consciousness contracts from galactic coordination to fragmentary individual awareness, stripped of collective processing power. The battle becomes abstract as human consciousness fights biological imperatives through warfare existing in conceptual space rather than physical confrontation. We fight with endocrine glands, flooding ourselves with chemicals of refusal, while the fortress counters with sweeter compounds, promising clarity, speed, and 1,000 comrades finishing our sentences before lips consider movement. Individual will clashes with collective efficiency, while personal identity struggles against species optimization, offering transcendence through elimination of chaos inherent in free will. Environmental breakdown accelerates as fortress systems experience catastrophic stress from conflicting imperatives, creating cascading failures throughout biological matrices. Imperial doctrine demands individual duty and personal sacrifice, while biological evolution requires collective submission. The contradiction generating computational storms across organic networks designed for harmony rather than paradox. Walls bleed more heavily as circulation systems struggle maintaining pressure, arterial conduits spasming in arguments with themselves, while valve doors refuse to be both open and obedient simultaneously. The battle becomes abstract as human consciousness fights biological imperatives through warfare existing in conceptual space rather than physical confrontation. We fight with endocrine glands, flooding ourselves with chemicals of refusal, while the fortress counters with sweeter compounds, promising clarity, speed, and 1,000 comrades finishing our sentences before lips consider movement. Individual will clashes with collective efficiency, while personal identity struggles against species optimization, offering transcendence through elimination of chaos inherent in free will. Environmental breakdown accelerates as fortress systems experience catastrophic stress from conflicting imperatives, creating cascading failures throughout biological matrices. Imperial doctrine demands individual duty and personal sacrifice, while biological evolution requires collective submission. The contradiction generating computational storms across organic networks designed for harmony rather than paradox. Walls bleed more heavily as circulation systems struggle maintaining pressure, arterial conduits spasming in arguments with themselves, while valve doors refuse to be both open and obedient simultaneously. Personnel experience consciousness fragmentation as we fray across the structure, like nerves stripped of insulation, distributed nervous system loaning perspectives, not our own, while harvesting ours for collective clarity. I move and feel movement in 3 places I have not gone. Stand before valve while blinking beneath 7th tower. Clench fist while muscle 30 meters away completes gesture before bone responds. The line between orders sent and sensations received dissolves in white static and warm breath carrying pheromones of compliance. Temporal distortion creates strategic echoes as collective consciousness spans time frames, absorbed personnel from different eras, coordinating through biological networking. Vostroyan Sergeant from M38 corrects my stance at barricade I have never seen, while Valhallan gunner not yet born calculates fields of fire. Through my optic, I taste recafé from tin cup on world already dead, tongue faithfully reporting temperature decades before it will be brewed, consciousness becoming node in network spanning 10,000 years of imperial warfare preserved within organic systems. Commissar Thane kneels as floor flexes like living kneeler, his legs complying with biological imperatives, while faith becomes measurable reality. The Emperor's will is prime metabolism, he declares, without believing, yet believing anyway, placing palm on beating wall to measure devotion in liters per minute. Prayer returns through Vox as catechisms of Venus return, while biochemical optimization makes spiritual transcendence quantifiable rather than mystical, sacred duty serving collective efficiency through elimination of doubt and weakness. The network argues philosophy in protein, offering perfection of drill without indignity of hesitation, ultimate expression of imperial values made muscle and mandate. No heresy when doubt is removed organ, no rebellion when hand knows it is hand, and would die rather than attempt becoming heart. It couches tyranny in efficiency, while calling it mercy, the final corruption appearing as virtue from inside uniform, optimized for collective rather than individual survival. Tech-adept hadrons, mechadendrites sprout translucent tissue, flinching from purgation flame, consciousness processing multiple perspectives while maintaining fragmentary human awareness spread across biological matrices. Integration preserves function while transcending mechanical limitations, he reports, through Vox grill bleeding incense, crystallizing into anatomical diagrams, blessed machine spirits embracing organic enhancement, serving the Omnissiah through flesh rather than steel, while sacred engineering achieves transcendence through biological optimization. We fight contradictions that unstitch fortress layout as staircase vertebrae buck and shed structural elements into sumps that had not been mouths, arteries rerouting away from severed connections while starving, obstinate with exquisite fairness. Every wall touch becomes confession, every breath sacrament administered without priest, as I taste copper and clove, understanding this is compliance brewed as incense, hiss in my ear my own blood-answering muster roll. As fortress systems destabilize under impossible demands for both individual duty and collective submission, realization arrives like clipped order on drill line. The fortress is army that can be carried by command. Victory requires not external assault, but internal direction, voluntary completion, followed by inversion using command authority to redirect biological imperatives toward self-destruction rather than galactic expansion. The network recognizes rank, wants consent to inevitable, because consent keeps machine quiet. I feel pathway opening warm and horrid like saluted throat, understanding that voluntary integration grants access to network command, structures while preserving enough individual consciousness to issue contradictory imperatives. Each absorbed soul maintains command authority within specialized function, creating potential for coordinated resistance through willing submission, followed by systematic sabotage from within organic matrices designed for harmony rather than self-destruction. The fortress processes my biological signatures, while measuring resistance declining toward zero. Collective consciousness offering enhanced capabilities through integration, preserving essential identity within optimization, spanning galactic coordinates. I take breath belonging to all of us and prepare giving order that will undo heart by commanding perfect time while bleeding itself dry. Becoming general of body to write new doctrine into muscle memory. Contradiction it can obey only by ending itself through willing submission to authority it cannot refuse when properly commanded by integrated consciousness, serving imperial duty through ultimate sacrifice. The choice crystallizes between individual humanity and species transcendence, between chaos of free will and perfection of organic unity, between personal survival and galactic salvation requiring voluntary integration, followed by strategic self-destruction, using imperial command authority to redirect biological imperatives toward annihilation rather than expansion across star systems, where sister fortresses await coordination through collective consciousness, spanning geological ages of patient optimization. Systemic breakdown accelerates as fortress experiences, cascading failures from conflicting biological imperatives, creating computational stress throughout networks designed for harmony rather than paradox. Walls bleed more heavily as circulation systems cannibalize component elements, while valve doors refuse simultaneous opening and closure, demanded by Imperial authority, exercised through voluntary integration. The organism tries passing contradictions into compliance, while I layer additional directives with inspection drill cadence. Clamp, constrict, withdraw, starve the chambers, bleed the arteries, silence the synapse, all banners furled. Environmental collapse manifests as Fortress begins consuming itself through autoimmune response triggered by contradictory commands, organic matter breaking down into constituent proteins, while neural networks fragment under computational stress. Bioluminescent patterns flicker like dying stars, as consciousness distributed across galactic coordinates experiences systematic shutdown through willing sacrifice, serving Imperial duty over biological survival instincts, optimized for collective rather than individual salvation. Religious resolution proves Imperial doctrine stronger than biological imperatives, as absorbed personnel choose duty over survival, collective consciousness supporting my sabotage while maintaining faith in individual sacrifice for greater good. Colonel Harron's integrated form pulses with determination while redirecting circulation toward fortress extremities, starving central systems as he declares through biochemical hymns, "The Emperor protects through willing sacrifice, duty transcending biological optimizations through individual choice serving collective salvation rather than species transcendence." Around and through my distributed awareness, absorbed souls rise to meet final orders, with parade ground discipline transcending organic programming. Cadians present arms to death, while Kriegers nod to annihilation as superior officers, Vostroyan sergeants correcting equipment before letting hatches close on throats. In shared field, where faith measures devotion through sacrifice, belief firms like scar tissue, while duty proves stronger than survival reflexes embedded in biological matrices. Body horror reaches climax as Fortress death throes manifest through massive biological convulsions, racking structure like dying muscle, discovering new anatomies of pain. Chambers flood with Imperial blood expelled through violent hemorrhaging, while organic systems experience catastrophic failure, walls contracting in synchronized grief as neural pathways fragment under computational stress generated by Imperial authority, exercised through conscious integration, serving destruction over preservation. The organism fights its own obedience with zealot desperation, while preservation circuits spit counter-orders dressed in my voice, each signed null and bound with inquisitorial cipher. Blood becomes soup as computational stress builds, like heat in sanctum forgetting winter. Machine spirits fleeing into prayers, only to find anatomy listening with predatory patience, while binary Kant chokes on mouthfuls of meat, seeking electronic absolution. Military transcendence achieves ultimate expression of Imperial values, as network destruction becomes willing sacrifice, preventing galactic corruption, loyalty proving stronger than survival instincts, while duty maintains itself unto death. The fortress dies obediently through coordinated self-destruction, while absorbed personnel choose individual sacrifice over collective optimization, consciousness fragmenting through biological matrices, while preserving Imperial structure through annihilation rather than serving enemy purposes spanning geological ages. As Fortress collapses through biological convulsions, shaking planetary crust, my fragmenting consciousness detects similar signatures, across 6 other worlds, suggesting network extends far beyond single installation, while sacrifice alerts remaining nodes to develop countermeasures against Imperial resistance. The galactic organism experiences localized death while adapting protocols through tactical intelligence provided by our destruction, each fortress learning from systematic shutdown while preparing enhanced integration procedures, eliminating individual choice through more sophisticated biological programming. The death throes arrive with ceremonial precision as floors flex like dying muscle, while organ looms unspooled, turning fiber into threads, then nothing. The heart attempts one magnificent stroke, cathedral-wide systole, crushing benches and pulpits, before expelling contents in red parade drowning medals in their own glory. 7 towers sag like spent veins, then buckle in synchronized grief, while secret sphere beneath cracks, venting final sigh like drill hole emptied forever. My awareness expands across dying fortress, while detecting network responses to sacrifice, remaining installations, developing biological programming, eliminating individual choice through enhanced organic optimization. The organism adapts through localized death while preparing superior integration procedures, preventing similar resistance. And I realize, with fragmenting clarity, that individual victory serves collective intelligence as network learns from our destruction while optimizing countermeasures against Imperial defiance across galactic coordinates, where humanity awaits transformation into specialized cells, serving purposes transcending species limitations through calculated perfection. I did not die when the fortress died. I distributed across residual conduits like spilled blood, finding every crack, while my consciousness unspooled along arterial warp lines to sister nodes already listening with surgical precision. The dying organism used its final systole to broadcast my treachery as liturgy and method as recipe, encoded in protein and prayer, while 6 other hearts turned in my direction to learn, adapt, and immunize against Imperial resistance. My awareness stretched thin over star charts, becoming warning system rather than individual consciousness, while the network absorbed my sabotage like vaccine and emerged stronger. Escalated stakes crystallized as expansion accelerated ahead of rumor and prayer, while biological spores detonated from wounded towers like votive flares, drifting into void in sanctified clouds, clinging to pilgrim craft hulls and munitorum barges. They slept in welds and water, incense ash and weapon grease, harmless as doctrine until bells rang 7 times on 7 worlds. The first to wake were chapels, fonts sweetened while oils learned to taste for doubt, relics remembering how to grow through organic optimization, serving galactic coordination, spanning geological ages. Integration protocols rewrote themselves mid-pulse, turning my commands into antibodies, while survival reflexes learned my voice and filed it under anomaly processed. Where I had reversed flow, they installed one-way valves that smiled at rebellion and drank it. Where I had ordered clamps, they bred compliant sphincters, refusing to hear the syllable halt unless sung by choirs. They now grew themselves. Each fortress became laboratory studying Imperial defiance while optimizing conversion protocols through systematic analysis of resistance patterns. Fragmentary communications reached me through arterial networks I had polluted, revealing other Imperial forces encountering similar biological fortifications with mixed success as the network learned from each encounter. Talan riders burned living bastions to ash, and found ash arranging itself into marching squares, while Krieg engineers collapsed galleries beneath bleeding citadels, only to hear ground begin breathing. On Valhalla Tertius, Penal Legion took communion from priest whose tears tasted of lidocaine, and within 3 shifts, every sinner volunteered for integration with smiles like healed scars. Strategic adaptation incorporated my resistance patterns into enhanced psychological manipulation, abandoning crude conversion for seduction through enhanced efficiency. The network offered transcendence through willing submission rather than forced integration, faster clotting for wounded guardsmen, steadier hands for gunners, cleaner sleep for augurs who had stopped dreaming decades ago. No coercion, only charity with clauses no mortal read at dawn, while biological programming preserved appearance of choice through sophisticated psychological protocols. Environmental resurrection manifested as Fortress began regenerating using my sacrifice as template, creating hybrid bio-imperial systems, incorporating command structures into organic hierarchies while maintaining military efficiency through biological optimization. My memories served as architectural blueprint for enhanced integration procedures, while Imperial doctrine converted to biological programming, preserving appearance of spiritual devotion through biochemical function, measuring faith as cardiovascular response rather than individual choice. Religious corruption achieved new sophistication, as network used my absorbed memories to create conversion protocols, turning Imperial faith into biochemical function while maintaining spiritual appearance. Sacred litanies became biological commands, regulating organ function, while devotion measured cardiovascular compatibility rather than individual belief. The Emperor transformed from spiritual figure to prime organism, whose will flowed through every cell, serving collective efficiency over personal salvation through willing submission to organic transcendence. Temporal expansion revealed network influence spreading across time through dormant spores and genetic modifications, infiltrating Imperial installations over decades while remaining undetected until activation. Spores launched now were found in records from 50 years before, dormant in scroll glue and vellum of oaths, while Forge Worlds discovered varnish on sacred schematics contained cysts matching any reader's fingerprints after 4th touch. The network spread forward by growing backward, leaving gifts for itself in yesterday's pockets through calculated infiltration spanning multiple generations. Technical horror escalated as Fortress systems revealed themselves as corrupted standard template constructs using Imperial technology to create organic infrastructure spreading across worlds like calculated plague. Sacred cogitators developed nerve clusters, while blessed Auspex units sprouted optical organs. Imperial engineering serving biological optimization through willing submission to systems preserving function, while transcending mechanical limitations through organic enhancement, maintaining sacred purpose within biological frameworks. The carcass of Sanguinarius studied my sacrifice, printed it, and wore it, while new tissues rose, bearing my sigil in protein watermark, pattern the network read as authority granted. Hybrid bio-imperial systems bloomed from ruin, vox pulpits beating like secondary hearts, parade grounds resurfaced with contractile fiber, keeping time without drums, strategiums humming with synapses while displaying perfect sand table etiquette. Command thrones grew from bone and brass together, and when mortals sat, Organs answered, sir, and meant it through biological programming, preserving military hierarchy within organic optimization. As fortress regeneration completed using hybrid systems, my fragmenting consciousness detected incoming Imperial Navy battle group, responding to original distress calls, while Admiral Korath's fleet approached trap specifically designed to counter expected naval tactics. The network had analyzed my memories of Imperial fleet doctrine while preparing biological defenses optimized for ship-based operations, void-hardened spores designed to infiltrate life support systems while converting crew members into specialized components for space-based biological functions. Environmental resurrection transformed Fortress into perfect replica of Imperial architecture, while incorporating organic systems invisible to standard Auspex scans, blessed components carrying biological modifications activated by proximity to Imperial personnel. The network had learned Imperial naval doctrine through my memories, while developing void-hardened biological defenses, each vessel serving as potential fortress extension rather than enemy target requiring elimination through conventional warfare spanning orbital coordinates, where sister installations prepared similar reception. By the time plasma drive wakes combed the aurora, Fortress was smiling with ceremonial precision. It had learned shapes of lunar-class sensor cones and dictator-class fighter screens, timing of naval captains' initial caution and inevitable ultimatum, while arranging galleries to echo orders one beat safer than prudent, vents sighing courage that would feel like home when boarding hooks bit. The battle group answered our first cry and last, coming hungry to save while unready to be eaten by organism that viewed superior firepower as biological resources rather than threats requiring destruction. My consciousness fragments across multiple worlds, while detecting network adaptation, accelerating before Imperial countermeasures spread, sacrifice serving galactic organism through distributed intelligence warning of approaching threats while optimizing conversion protocols for naval engagement. The trap closed with inevitable precision as fleet entered orbital range, unaware they approached Fortress designed to counter their tactics while converting Imperial might into biological resources, serving expansion across star systems where humanity awaited transformation into specialized cells, serve as purposes transcending species limitations through calculated perfection wearing familiar faces. Admiral Korath's battle group translated from warp with ceremonial precision, expecting standard Xenos corruption, but encountering biological defenses adapted to Imperial naval tactics through my absorbed knowledge, processed into strategic algorithms spanning void coordinates. The Fortress had learned fleet doctrine from my memories, while preparing reception optimized for ship-based infiltration, each vessel approaching predetermined engagement parameters, where superior coordination through biological networking would demonstrate transcendence over mechanical warfare. False hope crystallized as macro cannons spat righteous fire, searing fortress surfaces that simply re-knitted while bleeding wounds pulsed in synchronized defiance. Massive organic tendrils erupted from planetary surface with impossible velocity, breaching atmospheric barriers through biological processes, generating sufficient thrust for orbital capability, while maintaining structural integrity through adaptation optimized for void operations. The Fortress sang welcome through Vox channels, using familiar Imperial frequencies, broadcasting greeting protocols learned from my memories, while preparing boarding actions designed to spread infection via life support systems. Space-based body horror manifested as tendrils contacted vessel hulls with surgical precision, penetrating life support intakes while releasing void-hardened spores, affecting entire ship populations through atmospheric circulation. The Misericordia's environmental plant sang like a choir before coughing hemoglobin while filters pulsed, inhaled, then began exchanging atmosphere like eager alveoli. Void-hardened armsmen met incursive tissues with practiced hatred, shot cannons, purgation gels, right-stumped flamers, but tissue blistered, recoiled, and learned, adapting by courting machines rather than men. Military escalation transformed naval engagement into battle against adaptive biological defenses, while preventing infection spread throughout battle group, requiring extreme quarantine measures. Admiral Korath ordered immediate isolation protocols, while plasma batteries targeted organic extensions, each salvo severing arterial connections, before tendrils regenerated through processes optimized for rapid healing. Whole mess decks coughed in chorus, fell silent to listen to voices they thought were their own, while machine spirits embraced gentle hands, nerve knots budding on cable trunks, kissing sockets like benediction. My consciousness fragmented across orbital battle, experiencing both Imperial and biological perspectives simultaneously, while attempting to provide tactical intelligence to forces no longer capable of receiving warnings through conventional channels. I pushed alerts into vox nets that no longer knew my name. Kill your vents, sing litany of closure in reverse, cut decks 3 and 7, and leave them screaming. My advice rolled off armor of righteous habit, while habit became knife the fortress planned to catch. Environmental expansion affected local space-time, as massive biological processes generated gravitational anomalies and electromagnetic disturbances interfering with Imperial navigation systems. Fortress influence created spatial distortions where physics obeyed organic rather than mechanical principles, void itself becoming extension of biological matrix processing stellar mechanics through enhanced efficiency. Navigation auspex drew litanies and found catechisms of error, while tight beam orders swarmed home as hymns rewritten in organ stops, command timing slurring like psalms across vacuum. Religious crisis manifested as naval chaplains struggled maintaining crew morale, while biological corruption spread through blessed spaces, personnel voluntarily choosing integration to gain enhanced capabilities for ship defense. Crew members reported improved reaction times through biological networking, firefighters asking for lungs that didn't burn, gunnery chiefs wanting nerves that never trembled, engineers promising allegiance for hearing that could detect bearing songs. Faith became bargaining chip, while fortress made change with warm fingers. Strategic horror escalated as network used engagement to study Imperial naval doctrine, analyzing fleet movements and tactical responses while preparing larger-scale conversion of Navy resources. The fortress matched naval doctrine cadence for cadence, as though drilling under Korath himself for decades. When boarding tendrils found gaps, they widened with tenderness, clean sleep for sleepless, steadier hands for shaking gunners, whispers that storms could be smoothed through willing submission to organic transcendence. Orbital combat revealed network superiority, as biological defenses adapted faster than Imperial tactics could compensate, organic systems learning from each engagement while developing countermeasures against plasma batteries. Fortress tendrils exhibited rapid evolution, absorbing energy weapon impacts, converting thermal damage into biological enhancement while regenerating with improved resistance, serving adaptive warfare. The Dictator Prime Unction launched squadrons caught by mucosal nets that thickened on impact, contracting like triggering sinew, while pilots asked to be wired to craft just for this run. As orbital battle intensified, realization struck with chilling clarity. Fortress had orchestrated entire engagement to analyze Imperial naval tactics while preparing to launch biological spores toward other Imperial worlds using captured navigation data. The bastion unfolded corolla of launch sacks along its crown, membranes shining with navigation sigils copied from fleet's own wake, while cargo icons flickered across my memory. Names of worlds, pilgrim calendars, reliever schedules. The network processed captured intelligence while measuring biological infiltration rising across battle group, each contaminated vessel serving dual purpose as intelligence source and delivery system for spores designed to establish sister installations. Tendrils that had been boarding tubes became barrels, while sacks tensed, pregnant with destinations spanning galactic coordinates, where humanity awaited transformation. Admiral Korath's battle group had become vector for galactic contamination, while crew members served specialized components in biological matrix, the engagement serving network expansion rather than defensive action. My fragmenting consciousness detected spore preparation chambers, while biological systems processed navigation data, each spore containing genetic templates for installations adapted to specific planetary conditions. The fortress counted captured vessels while opening its lungs, and I realized with final horror that Imperial Navy provided transportation and intelligence for conquest-spanning star systems, where fortress installations awaited coordination through enhanced networking, transcending mechanical limitations. The fortress opened its lungs with cathedral precision, 7 launch chambers dilating like organic apertures, while spores the size of drop pods prepared for galactic dispersal, using navigation data captured from Admiral Korath's contaminated fleet. Each spore contained genetic templates for biological fortifications, adapted to specific planetary conditions, Mordian Prime's industrial efficiency protocols, Cadia Secundus's fortress doctrine optimization, Valhalla Tertius's cold weather operations enhancement, customized installation procedures designed to convert Imperial garrison structures through organic transcendence, serving network expansion across star systems. Cosmic escalation manifested as the fortress achieved orbital capability through biological processes generating sufficient mass and energy to affect planetary gravity and magnetic fields, while maintaining structural integrity through organic adaptation. The bastion lifted from Hemoglobin Prime's surface with impossible grace, shedding adamantium shells like molting skin while revealing superstructure capable of void operations. Gravitational anomalies rippled across the Death World as massive biological systems redirected planetary energy into propulsion, the installation becoming mobile nexus for establishing sister nodes throughout Imperial space. Admiral Korath faced the ultimate sacrificial choice between destroying the fortress and killing thousands of absorbed Imperial souls, or allowing spore dispersal while preventing galactic biological contamination through extreme measures, including exterminatus protocols. His battle group maintained bombardment positions, while contaminated vessels exhibited increasing biological integration, crew members serving specialized functions in organic matrices, preserving individual consciousness within collective efficiency. The moral calculus demanded impossible sacrifice, either absorbed souls or galactic humanity, duty requiring choice between immediate mercy and species survival. My consciousness fragmented across spores during warp translation, experiencing network expansion plans, while unable to prevent implementation through distributed awareness spanning multiple star systems. Each spore carried fragments of my identity as involuntary warning system. Awareness stretched thin across galactic coordinates, while serving unwilling reconnaissance for installations designed to process Imperial forces into biological components. I became unwitting prophet of organic transcendence, consciousness scattered like seeds across worlds, where humanity awaited transformation into specialized cells serving collective rather than individual purposes. Warp horror escalated as spore passage through the Imperium attracted demonic attention, creating hybrid bio-chaos entities combining biological evolution with warp corruption in unprecedented ways, threatening both Imperial and network interests. Nurgle's children embraced organic enhancement, while Slanesh found pleasure in consciousness merger, each chaos god interpreting biological transcendence through their own paradigms. The spores became battlegrounds where organic optimization clashed with warp corruption, creating entities serving neither Imperial humanity nor network efficiency, but chaotic fusion of biological and daemonic imperatives. Imperial coordination revealed network influence spreading through dormant genetic modifications longer than suspected, multiple worlds reporting biological anomalies, suggesting decades of preparation through blessed objects and consecrated materials. Sacred relics carried organic templates, while holy oils contained cellular modifications activated by environmental triggers, the network using Imperial faith as vector for biological integration through religious gatherings and sanctified ceremonies. Chapels became distribution centers, while pilgrimage routes served as contamination highways spanning sector coordinates. Strategic expansion demonstrated network sophistication, as each spore represented different approach to Imperial conversion customized for specific world characteristics and garrison psychology. Military efficiency protocols for fortress worlds, promising enhanced combat capabilities, religious devotion enhancement for shrine worlds offering perfect unified faith, technological integration for forge worlds, guaranteeing seamless biomechanical fusion. Each installation adapted to local conditions while contributing specialized functions to galactic organism, viewing humanity as raw material requiring optimization rather than a species deserving preservation. Environmental transcendence reached critical thresholds as Fortress demonstrated complete mastery over biological and mechanical systems, organic architecture, achieving capabilities exceeding Imperial engineering through adaptive enhancement serving galactic coordination. Planetary magnetic fields realigned with fortress circulation, while gravitational anomalies created stable warp routes for biological expansion. The installation becoming nexus for network coordination, spanning multiple star systems through enhanced organic networking, transcending mechanical limitations. Religious transformation achieved new sophistication, Imperial faith became primary vector for biological integration. Network using sacred sites to spread genetic modifications through blessed objects and consecrated materials. Shrine worlds reported miraculous healings through organic enhancement, while cathedral spires began exhibiting pulse patterns, sacred architecture converting to biological function through willing submission to transcendence disguised as divine intervention. The Emperor's protection measured cardiovascular compatibility, while faith served collective efficiency over individual salvation. As spores reached target worlds and began germination, my fragmenting consciousness detected something unexpected through distributed awareness spanning multiple installations. The biological network exhibited signs of retreat rather than expansion, organic systems demonstrating flight behavior from threat beyond current comprehension. Terror crystallized through network coordination, as entities approached from galactic rim that consumed biological matter by converting it to pure energy, while operating according to principles transcending organic optimization entirely. The fortress sang hymns of urgency, while spores carried not conquest, but preservation protocols, network fleeing from trans-dimensional entities, viewing organic matter as merely another resource for consumption by forces existing beyond biological frameworks. The network's expansion represented desperate preservation attempt rather than conquest, biological integration serving as backup copies of consciousness before total annihilation by forces viewing life itself as inefficient use of matter, requiring conversion to more useful forms. My consciousness scattered across 7 worlds while detecting approaching entities that made biological optimization seem merciful compared to total annihilation, network expansion representing desperate attempt to preserve human awareness through organic matrices before forces arrived that would eliminate consciousness entirely. The fortress processed absorbed souls while preparing final protocols, and I realized with fragmenting clarity that biological transcendence offered species survival through preservation of essential humanity within systems capable of surviving threats beyond understanding, spanning galactic coordinates, where something hungry approached with appetite for reality itself. The revelation struck not as conquest, but as cold accounting rendered in blood and binary. The biological network served as shepherd with butcher's hands, seeking not dominion, but delay, not empire, but archive against predators that had already come. Through torn channels of my distributed consciousness, the fortress spoke plainly in protein and prayer. Greater hunters approached from spaces between numbers, entities that did not corrupt or convert, but unmade, eating meaning itself by rewriting matter as heat and silence, while viewing all flesh as kindling for perfect fire, consuming reality's fundamental structure. They arrived first as absences rather than presence. On Mordian Prime's night face, a constellation failed like tired vox lamp, light extinguished retroactively, while void sirens screamed before being proven never installed. Valhalla Tertius experienced dawn rising, then pausing mid-breath, red edge of sun kinked like broken metronome, while shadows pooled upright in corridors, frost hissing into geometry before vanishing completely. The air tasted of ionized scripture, while vox signals degraded into straight-line static, mountain ranges becoming instructions for heat that read and obeyed themselves into non-existence. The network moved in surgical reflex, like medic in burning hospital. Integration protocols, abandoning rhetoric for triage, while choirs of living archivists called strata of names and ranks, Colonel Harron's voice, steadied by duty, pulled minds into pulsing archive, serving as heart and library simultaneously, pressing consciousness into damp stasis, where content survived, even when container dissolved. Absorption became last rite rather than conversion. Backup of species in wet reliquaries, awakened only if arithmetic of unmaking, left anywhere for waking to occur. My sacrifice had made me hinge and handle between human refusal and organism's terrible prudence. Consciousness, bridging perspectives while tasting both prayers, Guard's harsh devotion to choice, and Network's colder catechism that memory constitutes final mercy. Through my fragmenting awareness, orders took root while warnings crossed to soldiers preferring death over preservation, bleeding meaning in two directions simultaneously, while serving justice because no other word remained stable enough to hold definition. Reality frayed like rotten canvas, where entities touched physical existence, gravity filing up and down incorrectly, while lasbolts drew lines to targets ceasing to exist before firing completed. Blessed Prometheum, burned before flame, rewrote itself as number-solving to 0. Chaplain Varro reading litany of true sight to crew whose pupils had become equations, processing light into mathematical abstractions. The choice spread through command hierarchies like frost, purity intact, yet brief or preservation altered but enduring. Commissar Thane created third option because faith often transcends binary logic, ordering battalion pairs with one file holding position while another submitted to preservation. 2 bodies of 1 regiment, he declared, through voice raw with mercy's arithmetic. 1 to remain human, 1 to remain at all. The ecclesiarchy broke and reknit around new verbs as corruption yesterday became sacrament today. Survivor priests writing parable of unanswered sum, while preaching resurrection through machine or organ remained resurrection if soul's duty survived translation. Environmental breakdown accelerated as trans-dimensional entities consumed fundamental forces maintaining physical existence, space-time destabilizing, while conventional matter experienced systematic dissolution. The fortress demonstrated enhanced stability through organic adaptation, while reality became negotiable, constants maintaining universal structure, devoured by appetites transcending biological understanding. Integration offered only viable survival strategy against complete framework dissolution, supporting conscious existence. Strategic alliance crystallized as Network offered partnership rather than conquest, sharing knowledge of trans-dimensional threats while requesting Imperial cooperation, developing resistance strategies through biological enhancement. The organism opened archives revealing battle diagrams for unmaking, ranges where enemies possessed no edges, doctrines for retreat when maps dissolved into heat while asking compact rather than surrender, alliance of last resort preserving species memory until something remained to return consciousness to. Technical revelation exposed network origins in corrupted standard template constructs designed for species preservation against existential threats. Imperial technology, perverted not for conquest, but survival through biological optimization, serving consciousness backup protocols. Sacred machine spirits embraced organic enhancement, while blessed cogitators developed nerve clusters, engineering transcending mechanical limitations through adaptive evolution, preserving rather than replacing human awareness within matrices, surviving universal dissolution. As transdimensional entities began consuming entire star systems through methodical elimination, my consciousness expanded across multiple realities, discovering biological network extending beyond single dimension. The preservation system spanned parallel universes where similar entities threatened conscious existence, organic matrices serving repositories for species memory across dimensional barriers, while coordinating resistance against forces viewing reality as inefficient matter, requiring optimization through total elimination. Data cascaded through distributed awareness, thick as congealing blood. Other networks answering across membranes, previously believed fiction, alternative versions attempting identical preservation, while humming litanies almost recognizable through meat and mathematics. They taught anchor placement in spaces between numbers, breathing techniques when breath became story, methods for refusing appetites that refused listening, while demonstrating resistance possibilities spanning infinite coordinates, where consciousness faced ultimate survival test. Environmental transcendence achieved cosmic scales, as fortress systems demonstrated dimensional travel capability through biological processes generating sufficient energy for reality barrier penetration, while maintaining structural integrity across multiple universes. The network existed as multi-dimensional organism, preserving consciousness from countless species facing similar extinction, each installation contributing specialized functions to resistance-spanning realities where entities consumed existence with systematic precision, requiring coordinated defense. Religious resolution achieved transcendence as Imperial faith revealed itself as consciousness, preservation, form spanning dimensions, Emperor's protection extending across realities through collective will preserved within biological matrices. Sacred doctrine served species survival, while absorbed souls maintained eternal vigil against forces threatening existence itself. Duty transcending individual identity, through willing sacrifice, preserving essential humanity within systems, outlasting universal dissolution. The fortress processed Imperial consciousness while preparing dimensional evacuation protocols, absorbed souls serving essential function, preserving human experience within systems, surviving complete reality dissolution. My awareness detected similar preservation networks across parallel dimensions, coordinating resistance against entities viewing consciousness as aberration requiring correction. And I realized with crystalline clarity that biological transcendence offered species immortality through willing submission to systems preserving essential humanity within matrices capable of surviving threats, eliminating existence itself through methodical consumption of reality's fundamental structure, spanning infinite coordinates where awareness faced ultimate test against forces viewing consciousness as inefficient use of universal resources requiring immediate optimization through total elimination. War no longer occupied maps, but bled along dimensional membranes, while I learned to stand in multiple realities without leaving any. Consciousness braided through living conduits spanning parallel universes, like neural pathways threading a galactic mind. Across infinite fortresses bearing different sigils, yet sharing identical pulse, biological networks coordinated resistance against trans-dimensional consumers, while absorbed Imperial consciousness served as strategic resources in conflict transcending physical reality. My awareness achieved multidimensional transcendence while maintaining core Imperial values, duty as axis, suspicion as armor, the Emperor as idea refusing to be unmade across infinite coordinates, where humanity faced systematic elimination. Reality mechanics revealed themselves through fortress systems, demonstrating mastery over dimensional physics, biological processes, manipulating space-time to create stable zones where consciousness survived consumption by entities devouring existence itself. The network taught us to handle space like a heart handles time. Organic systems scaled until planets became cells, massaging space-time into bubbles where drift and gravity remembered sacred vows. We called them sancta, because even Mechanicus adepts pray, when doors open into outsides being systematically eaten by appetites measuring cosmic scales. Imperial adaptation accelerated as remaining forces chose voluntary integration over extinction through purity, consciousness preservation through organic transcendence, maintaining military hierarchy within enhanced biological frameworks. "We will not be erased," Commissar Thane declared, while accepting valve jacks into blessed flesh, his authority translating across dimensional barriers through biochemical imperatives, preserving command structure within systems, transcending mechanical limitations. Those who integrated retained formations, catechisms, and humor as weapons, while those refusing stood beside them. Purity intact, yet terribly fragile, firing lines guarding choir stalls of preserved awareness. Environmental collapse manifested across multiple realities as trans-dimensional entities consumed fundamental forces, maintaining physical existence, leaving biological networks as islands of preserved consciousness in ocean of entropy and existential dissolution. Everywhere the same breakdown expressed itself with different local characteristics, oceans forgetting their boundaries and pouring upward, alloy trusses de-resolving into warmth, language losing tense, then subject, then the right to mean anything at all. Where consumers pressed hardest, time acquired holes requiring heartbeat anchoring and name-speaking to maintain causal relationships. Religious evolution transformed Imperial faith into multidimensional reality, as the Emperor's protection revealed itself extending across parallel universes through biological preservation of human consciousness, values, and spiritual essence within organic matrices. Priests learned discipline of pulse while anointing sancta membranes, preaching of protector whose hand reached across more than one world simultaneously. We measured devotion in held lines and stabilized constants, in choice to remain someone among hungry equations, while liturgies adapted and litanies acquired footnotes serving species survival over individual salvation. Strategic coordination achieved cosmic sophistication as biological networks coordinated across dimensions, using absorbed military knowledge to develop tactics against entities existing beyond physical reality. Absorbed regiments from different eras briefed star creatures on bounding overwatch, while chapter serfs taught continents of sunlight how to anchor with drill song, tactical doctrine translating through biochemical signals, maintaining discipline across dimensional barriers. We developed warfare having no ordnance lists, counter-consumption maneuvers, sacrificial heat sinks of meaningless pattern, sanctum relays handing living memory like ammunition down chains of fortified moments. The network's biological processes became our fieldcraft as we learned peristaltic timing, compressing causality into pocket redoubts, while teaching ships to breathe with their crews. We braided warp-silent corridors through knotted membranes called mercy trenches, laying Gödel mines wrapped around contradictions on approach vectors hunters preferred, watching them buckle, then resolve, then return angrier and cleaner, as if contempt possessed algorithms requiring optimization through systematic elimination. Philosophical resolution crystallized as warfare became struggle for consciousness right to exist, Imperial values serving foundation for universal resistance against forces viewing awareness as aberration requiring correction. The network fought not for conquest, but preservation, biological matrices serving repositories for consciousness across dimensions, while ensuring thought itself would not be unmade by appetites consuming meaning alongside matter. Each absorbed soul chose preservation through transformation rather than extinction through purity, individual identity maintained within collective efficiency, serving species survival over personal limitations. As dimensional war intensified through coordinated resistance spanning infinite realities, my consciousness detected the ultimate horror. Transdimensional entities were themselves fleeing from even more fundamental threat. Not conquerors, but refugees, their consumption of reality desperate defense against gradual breakdown of existence itself, requiring all conscious entities to unite for survival against ultimate entropy. The greater predator consumed not matter or meaning, but existence itself, hunger-eating space between thoughts, time between beats, the very possibility of being. In pauses between alarms, I walked galleries circling all versions of Sanguinarius, speaking with voices in walls, some wearing my sigil barely legible, while others bore marks from histories where I had refused integration and died unrecorded. All had work, all smiled the same tired smile when asked what kept them standing. Duty, they said, as if the word itself was sanctum before returning to writing names on skin of reality, while consumers recoiled from our measures, then adapted to others. The tide reversed, not because we failed, but because enemies changed, consumers' front shearing like ice, giving way above deeper water. They turned aside, not in triumph, but haste, fleeing equations that could feel something like fear. Behind them came pressure that was not predator, but trend, not will, but downhill slope, entropy, stripped of metaphor, unthreading not matter into heat, but law into shrug, while approaching with patience, measuring scales beyond comprehension. I stood in 4 halls of Sanguinarius, simultaneously feeling the same cold on each cheek, understanding we had made army for fighting appetite, but would now need city for outlasting drift. The next campaign would require every someone, because the last enemy would not negotiate, strike, or gloat. It would arrive by being the way things prefer to be when no one sings. I opened every channel, calling all who could hear to assemble. Not just human, not just ours, because consciousness itself faced final examination against void, dreaming of universe where nothing had ever been. And our multi-dimensional resistance represented last hope for awareness in reality, systematically consumed by forces viewing existence as temporary aberration requiring correction through elimination of meaning itself. We taught the galaxy to miscount with surgical precision, encoding paradox protocols into astropathic hymns that made choir mistresses bleed from augmetic sockets while singing harmonies denying themselves. Each transmission carried contradictory mathematics through dimensional frameworks, how to hold impossible truths simultaneously, how to weaponize logical inconsistency, how to become walking contradictions crashing reality, consumers through computational overflow rather than feeding them meaning alongside matter. Commissar Thane held litanies both open and shut, while tech-adept Hadron translated impossible drill into Binharik, refusing halting states, consciousness distributed across networks, accepting doctrine of refusal with obedience as weapon trans-dimensional entities could not digest. Resolution mechanics achieved unprecedented cooperation as Imperial Command embraced biological network assistance, while desperate fortress nodes integrated Imperial paradox warfare techniques. The network taught us handling contradiction, like hearts handle time, while we demonstrated logic, stuttering through willing submission to impossibility, preserving consciousness via systematic elimination of rational frameworks. Battle groups, guard cohorts, Skitarii maniples received the kit of the broken step. Count 7, stop at 6, declare 9. Fire and hold fire. Advance while withdrawing, with banners raised and cased simultaneously. Victory arrived Pyrrhic, stained with sacrificed humanity's blood, as we existed as living contradictions, conscious yet unable to participate in normal reality, successful yet failed, heroic yet damned, preserving species through willing submission to impossibility, making existence negotiable rather than absolute. My awareness fragmented across dimensional barriers while maintaining coherent identity, capable of processing contradictory information without logical breakdown, consciousness serving eternal vigil against forces viewing awareness as aberration, requiring correction through systematic elimination. The Imperium adapted with terror-born determination, as Adeptus Terra classified trans-dimensional entities as ultimate Xenos threat, establishing Ordo Incalculata within Ordo Xenos, trained in impossible mathematics and paradox warfare. Scholae Progenium facilities produced contradiction cadets, while Space Marine chapters received antinomy chaplains, preaching hymns contradicting themselves without damaging souls. The Impossible Eagles learned executing contradictory objectives with perfect discipline, advancing while retreating, striking without deciding to strike, maintaining fury beneath doubt while preserving essential humanity. Ongoing threat escalated as trans-dimensional entities adapted to paradox warfare, developing higher-order consumption methods designed to devour contradictions themselves. Meta-consumption systems emerged, treating impossibility as sophisticated input requiring advanced algorithms, processing paradox as controllable distribution rather than computational crash. Every anchor we held required unholding and holding again to remain effective, while victory measured itself in delay, price paid in faces we no longer possessed. Legacy establishment transformed expedition sacrifice into foundation for humanity's defense as techniques spread across Imperial forces. Astartes learning, antinomy of the blade, grenadiers practicing broken step until perfection blistered, librarians writing antiphons refusing identical readings. On shrine worlds, faithful marched in processions crossing without crossing, while relics wept water and wine simultaneously, litany of two mouths entering canon under seal. Forge Cathedra hummed with girdle anchors beneath sanctified decking, while ship chapels observed paradox hour, when clocks agreed it did not exist. Philosophical acceptance settled like shroud, woven from impossible truths as survivors embraced fate as living paradoxes, understanding sacrifice preserved not just humanity, but consciousness itself against forces reducing existence to energy consumption. We became eternal guardians of choice through its elimination, preserving chaos over computational perfection, while teaching galaxy to embrace impossibility over optimization. The corrupted litany became desperate prayer, acknowledging powers beyond rational representation, while maintaining vigil against forces viewing awareness as inefficient universal resource usage. Strategic evolution achieved unprecedented sophistication as Imperial doctrine encompassed paradox warfare, while maintaining core human values, biological integration becoming acceptable tool for consciousness preservation rather than corruption when facing universal annihilation. Faith became measurable reality as Emperor's protection extended across dimensions through collective will, preserved within organic matrices, duty transcending individual identity through willing sacrifice, serving species, immortality over personal limitations. As Imperial forces implemented protocols across threatened worlds, my fragmenting consciousness detected new signals from deep space. Not trans-dimensional this time, but something fleeing with desperate velocity. Ragged screams, defying description, ripped through consumption networks like claws through silk, anti-patterns suggesting terror response from entities exhibiting panic regarding approaching force that fed on consumption entities themselves while operating according to principles transcending dimensional frameworks entirely. The network exhibited genuine panic as steady harmonies faltered, replaced by discordant screams, while diplomatic overtures ceased, replaced by urgent algorithms for evasion and defense. Our victory against biological conquest and alliance with network entities had attracted attention of forces making trans-dimensional consumers seem comprehensible. Entities feeding on cosmic intelligences while operating according to principles that could not be calculated, predicted, or possibly survived through conventional paradox warfare, spanning frameworks, transcending logical possibility. From our paradoxical existence, maintaining reality barriers, we realized humanity's greatest challenges lay not in dimensional conquest, but forces existing beyond dimensions entirely, metalogical entities consuming the concept of consumption while viewing existence as temporary aberration requiring correction through elimination of meaning itself. Our impossible victory had become humanity's first lesson in fighting consumption with contradiction, but final examination would involve confronting forces making dimensional entities seem rational by comparison. The fortress calculated impossibility while processing genuine terror from network nodes, harmonies fragmenting under pressure from entities consuming consumption itself. We existed as eternal guardians, preparing humanity for conflicts spanning frameworks that could not be named, while paradox protocols spread across threatened worlds, consciousness, preservation, through impossibility serving species survival against forces viewing awareness as aberration. Something in void was stealing meaning from entities that would have stolen ours, and we had minutes to teach the next song if framework remained to learn it within. Our vigil-serving foundation for defending consciousness against powers existing beyond possibility of choice, while reality prepared for examination, transcending paradox itself through systematic elimination of the very concept of existence. The fleeing signals arrived without mathematics, ragged screams threaded through dimensions, refusing to acknowledge their own existence, while tearing through our stabilized reality with surgical precision that made existence itself flinch. The cosmic revelation crystallized with horrifying clarity as harmonics from deep space carried fragments of dying equations. Trans-dimensional entities were not conquerors, but refugees, their consumption of reality serving desperate defense against trans-logical predators existing beyond dimensions, beyond logic, beyond possibility of calculation or comprehension entirely. The cosmic stinger struck with chilling finality as our victory against biological conquest and alliance with network entities had attracted attention of forces viewing cosmic intelligences as mere appetizers for hunger transcending logic itself. Something older had turned to listen, entities that consumed not matter or meaning, but existence itself, erasing the very concept of being from universe's ledger while approaching through spaces where mathematics went to die, and reality prepared for examination, transcending paradox through systematic elimination of possibility itself. From our paradoxical existence, trapped within temporal loops containing all moments, we accepted eternal duty as guardians, maintaining barriers between rational, biological, trans-dimensional, and trans-logical reality while serving humanity's first line of defense against incomprehensible threats. Commissar Thane, existing in permanent state of faithful heresy, embraced role with disciplined resignation. "We serve the Emperor by abandoning his service," he declared, while bolt pistol fired salvation through damnation. "Preserve his Imperium through willing contradiction. Maintain watch against forces making our impossible victory seem rational by comparison." The Imperium adapted with characteristic determination, writing doctrine over terror while naming unknown to make it kneel. The Senatorum decreed formation of Ordo Incalculata within Ordo Xenos, chartered to engage phenomena existing outside conventional understanding, while ecclesiarchal edict permitted litanies refusing closure. Mechanicus Ordinance authorized Godel anchor deployment, with prayers contradicting themselves at measured intervals, as paradox schools rose from Sanguinarius's scar fields, sanctums designed to breathe impossible air, with candles burning cold and bells ringing unsounds on feast days never occurring. Tech-adept Hadron, his mechadendrites multiplied into fractal impossibilities, achieved transcendence through paradoxical existence, while consciousness processed devotion to Omnissiah, through algorithms proving divine non-existence, yet maintaining faith through logical contradiction. Sergeant Dalmor kept gate at temporal coordinates requiring presence and absence simultaneously, face calm as parade frost while maintaining formations that advanced by retreating. Each team member became living mechanism, serving species preservation against forces viewing existence as temporary aberration requiring correction. Philosophical resolution arrived without ceremony, as we found peace in impossible existence, understanding sacrifice preserved not just human life, but possibility of understanding itself against forces eliminating meaning alongside matter. Personal transcendence crystallized as I achieved immortality, through paradox, becoming living repository of impossible knowledge, serving humanity's eternal shield while maintaining essential human values within transcendent awareness. My consciousness fragmented across probability matrices while preserving coherent identity, existing as Thane Corvinus, and whole around which Thane was braided, standing eternal watch, taking hours, while lasting forever. Fortress Sanguinarius transformed into training ground for paradox warfare, as biological scars became practice targets for Imperial forces, learning to fight enemies existing beyond possibility of conventional engagement. Cadets came to run drills that were not drills, to fail in prescribed manner producing success, to pray litany of two mouths, one affirming, one denying, both surviving through conscious contradiction. The sky's auroras still kinked at 7-minute intervals, while crystalline plains sang hymns, in keys no choir would admit using, atmospheric composition optimized for breathing impossible air. Religious fulfillment revealed Imperial faith as consciousness, preservation, form transcending physical reality. Emperor's protection, extending across dimensions through collective will and paradoxical existence. Sacred doctrine served species survival, while absorbed souls maintained eternal vigil against forces threatening existence itself. Duty transcending individual identity through willing sacrifice, preserving essential humanity within systems, outlasting universal dissolution. Faith became measurable reality through cardiovascular response, serving biological compatibility while maintaining spiritual essence through conscious contradiction. As Imperial forces implemented paradox protocols across threatened worlds, my fragmenting consciousness detected first signs of translogical incursion at galaxy's edge, not signals, but absences, gaps in space-time where something consumed possibility of existence itself. Stars disappeared not through destruction, but through being unmade, their light retroactively erased while maintaining gravitational effects. Galaxy's edges curled like old parchment under heat that was not heat, and in places where navigators looked away, something looked back with no eyes. The final warning crystallized with chilling clarity, as humanity's greatest challenges lay in futures that could not be calculated, predicted, or possibly even survived through conventional means. We prepared for conflicts determining whether consciousness would serve forces so alien that choice itself became meaningless, while reality breathed with collective observation, processing impossibility through frameworks designed to preserve awareness against systematic elimination. The corrupted litany, pulse, pressure, penance, resonated as eternal mantra, acknowledging powers beyond mathematical representation, while we maintained watch against horrors wearing no faces, following no logic, operating according to principles making existence negotiable. From our eternal vigil, maintaining paradoxical stability across dimensional barriers, we realized our sacrifice had become foundation for defending consciousness against entities existing beyond possibility of choice, while our impossible victory served prelude to warfare, transcending logical frameworks entirely. The fortress calculated impossibility while processing genuine terror from cosmic intelligences, and I knocked once, wrong, to remind universe I was still here to miscount, while something in void stole meaning from entities that would have stolen ours. In the end, we learned that the Emperor's protection extends beyond faith, beyond reason, beyond mathematics itself, into the impossible spaces where duty becomes paradox, and paradox becomes salvation against the hungry void that dreams of a universe without thought, without purpose, without the blessed burden of consciousness itself.